Coming up, I have a conversation with Pastor Bruce and Pastor Sasha about True Hope Nampa, all that God has done, is doing, and how He may be calling you. This is the True Hope Weekly. Oh, welcome back to the Jesus is True Hope studio for another episode of the True Hope Weekly. And I got two guests here with me today, Pastor Bruce and Pastor Sasha. And we're going to have a really exciting conversation about all that God's been doing. Of course, you've heard about True Hope Nampa. It's happening. We're pretty excited about it. And so we're going to have a conversation surrounding that. We started talking about this right here several months back. Mm-hmm. And God's just been developing it and really, doing some awesome things with that. Bruce, tell us just a little bit, going back to the beginning, as you saw this start to develop, one of the questions was probably, who?
Yeah, well, let me go farther back than that, because I have for decades had a heart for struggling churches and rural churches, and in fact, we've been setting money aside for years to help churches that need help, and we became aware of what was First Baptist Nampa, and then New Directions Nampa, and now it'll be called True Hope Nampa, and it was declining and just not able to kind of get over the hump, and so things sort of started lining up where not only was there some help that was available to help them there, but it was a great opportunity because of the location and the zip code right there in downtown Nampa, and things just started coming together. Mm-hmm. So when all of this started happening, it became like what happened when we started Dry Creek Community Church up in Hidden Springs. It was like, wow, God is behind us. He's for this. And so next question is, who's going to go out there? And God had brought Sasha to us. He'd been here a couple of years, and he just seemed to be the perfect match. It seemed not only what God was doing in you, but as a missionary from Argentina, and it just seemed to fit. Sasha didn't know it at the time, and when I first approached him, it was like, "What? I like it here,"
Well, and I totally agree with you. I mean, kind of thinking about the context of where the church is and the situation of it also helps inform that who.
Right, absolutely.
And I totally agree. Sasha definitely came to my mind as well.
Yeah.
So how did that come to Sasha's attention?
Well, I asked him, if he was interested or willing, or I told him some of the rationale. I mean, we can do the math, but God does the work, right? It's his plan, and so God has to work in Sasha too, and did. And had to.
Yeah.
So I asked him, and that was like the first step. I didn't lay out 16 steps. The first step, is this something that you're interested in? Pray about it and see what God thinks. And I think reluctantly he did.
Yeah.
Started praying.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell the story.
Yeah. So for me, when he asked me, I immediately thought, we just got here. We've been here for, not just a couple years, but, after a couple years, you start to really get your roots set down more and, deeper community with people. And so all of those things were great. And then our girls were just thriving in school, and, we're just getting acclimated and feeling like we're a part of the neighborhood. So there's all sorts of things of comfort, so to speak, and stability for your family and just for your own life, that when you're asked this kind of bold, adventurous question, there's kind of like, well, I don't know about that, I'm really happy with where I am. And so, but I've always felt that, you can't say an immediate no when God gives opportunities to you. Sometimes they're not what he wants for you, and you go through the process of at least being open to it. And so when he originally asked me, I just said, okay, well, I don't know, and I'm kind of like, if you asked me today, I'd say no, but I'll be open to it, and let's pursue this and see what God does. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the process where I just opened myself up to that.
How long did it take from the first ask to, wow, maybe this is, I mean, not a confirmation necessarily, but wow, there's a little bit of a light bulb.
It took a few months. I'd say probably from the point you asked me to the point where it really started to pick up some momentum was at least 3 months. And of course, in those 3 months, I'm talking to my wife about it and asking her to pray about it. I talked to my kids about it. Floated the idea just to kind of see what their reaction would be to it and the kind of questions that they ask. And so, as a family, we were processing it. And so I'd say about 3 months, and then there was this moment that was a God moment, because he's in this, not in just inside of us working, but he also orchestrates things where, it's actually in the pandemic. And there was still lots of question marks about whether or not this is going to actually happen or not, as far as where New Direction was at. And so we just said, well, we'll go out to Nampa. We'll drive around the property. Never been out there before. We'll go get some ice cream at Stella's Ice Cream, right, to sweeten the deal for the kids. And the only place open in Nampa at the time. And we just prayed. And we just said, God, parked right there by the church. If you want us to be out here, we're willing, we're open. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, but if you want it, you can make it happen, and we're ready. So that's.
I should have said that right away. There's a great ice cream place right by the church.
Yeah. Absolutely. We were actually out there just this last weekend, and it was so cool to go and then just drive right down the street, and there was a sign that said True Hope Nampa coming. So so exciting. I know we've been part of things in our lives, and a lot of people have, where it seems like a door is opening, and then suddenly it's just not. And God does that sometimes, and he takes you through that process. But just recently, the vote went through, and as far as their congregation, and so how are they feeling about it?
Yeah, it's great. Well, so obviously God took them through a process as well. As he was preparing us, he was preparing them. And, and it was, they as a congregation, considered where they're at as a church, what they need, and they just felt like this was God's will. And so on December 20th, they voted as a congregation. The grand majority voted and said, yes, we feel like this is what God wants to do. And so last Sunday was the first Sunday, and they gave me this little cross-stitch plaque that says, from Isaiah, where God says, "Behold, I'm doing a new thing, and it springs forth." And so there's definitely some excitement. Obviously, there's a lot of things for them to process about this, but there's a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, and they've honored me and us as a church with the trust to move forward with this. So there's a lot of things, a lot of excitement going on right now.
Cool. Well, as God brought you in through a process of really revealing it to you, the part of it was the why, right? Like, this is a gospel need. This is a real need that is, there. And he called you specifically, but he's also calling others. And so could you speak to, for those who are watching, whether God may be calling them and kind of what the process can look like for them to determine that?
Yeah. Were you going to say something?
No. Okay. I'm like, give it to us.
Well, I think the process is going to be a lot like it was with me. When you first consider it, you're like, whoa, that's 25 minutes away, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a completely different community. It's a completely different church context. Obviously we have an established church. God is blessed and thankful to his grace. We're thriving and we're growing, and that's awesome. But we've got a church situation where it's a church that's been struggling, and there are not a lot of people right now, and that's absolutely fine, but it's just something to be aware of. Like, it's a different kind of thing, but it offers some opportunities that, just continuing to be a part of True Hope Downtown or True Hope Collister doesn't. And one of them is you get to be at the ground level of something new and exciting. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, not only is it new and exciting for you as well, but it also renews you spiritually. It's like, as you step out on faith and do something new and uncomfortable, like as the Bible always talks about, Jesus says that you will find your life when you lose it for him. And so anything that you lose in the process of doing it for him and his kingdom, you will actually find more life, and he'll reinvigorate you. And so I know that will be the same process that a lot of people are going through. And if you're listening and you're kind of like thinking, well, God maybe this is something that he might call us to do as a family, but I have all these reservations. Well, I understand those reservations. I went through them as well. I would just say, be willing, and then God can bless you and grow you as you step out on faith. So.
Yeah, I'm struck again and again by when I read in the scriptures how God just loves faith, and he loves, when we step out in faith and when we have big dreams based on faith. So I want to put you on the spot just a little bit because you shared something with us as a staff yesterday. But can you tell us what your hope is for a year from now for True Hope Nampa?
Oh, well, I put down, and when we had our New Year's celebration as a family, we put down things that we would like to see in 2021. And I put Nampa 100. So that means that a year from now, that there will be 100 people in that church. And I'm not just about the number. I don't care about the number. I care about the souls. I care about the health of the church. And I think that number is just a goal. It's just something to shoot for. If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it. And so this is like something that says, no, God is doing something here. Let's dive into it with our whole heart, our whole soul, and let's trust him for something that's big, much bigger than us. And so that's why I put that number down. And yeah, that's a lot of faith. And I know God can do it. And I'm expecting him to work through us towards that end. So.
Absolutely.
I put Nampa 200.
So. More faith than I have.
I'm just kidding. But something you said, I have seen, not only here with Dry Creek, Redemption Hill, with Collister, I have, and other church plants that I've been a part of before we came to Boise, I have just seen so many people's lives, Christian walk, sort of supercharged. When they're put in a position like this, suddenly they're really needed. Their gifts are really needed. And they can immediately put their hand on the plow and begin to be part of a movement and know that what they're doing is going to have some lasting fruit, not just people coming to Christ, but building a church that is healthy and vibrant and thriving in a community where it's under-churched. And so I would echo what Sasha says, that you may be sort of feeling this tug or seeing the need and seeing, wow, that would be a big step for us or for our family. But so yeah, I totally endorse that. It's always hard for us to see people move to a situation like that. Some of them return, some of them don't. But tell us about the sort of levels of commitment that someone could sign on to if they wanted to be a part of this project. First of all, we know that they could start praying.
Yeah.
So if they're part of a prayer team, you're going to need to know who they are, right?
Right. Yeah. So if you want to pray, we're forming an email list so that I'll be sending out weekly updates about Nampa so that you can just be praying for what's going on and then specific prayer requests. So please send me your email or just let me know that you want to be, if we already have your email, that you want to be on that list, and I'll make sure you get on that list.
So what's your email?
My email is sasha@jesusistruehope.com. So just email me at that address, and I'll get you on our email list. And then also, if you think of it in terms of, it's really a missions experience in our own backyard, right? And so that's kind of cool because you're like, well, maybe I'd never been able to go on a missions trip or a missions experience, but you can experience that here, and you don't actually have to leave. You do have to drive to Nampa, right? And so if we think of it in those terms, we can think of it maybe in like 3 tiers. And the first one would be sort of a short-term mission trip where you go and you spend a period of time, whether it's a week or a month or whatever it is, and you do a specific task, and you kind of generate some momentum, and you give a boost to that work for that amount of time. And of course, you also in the process learn and grow and stretch. And so that would be one tier. And then the second tier would be like more of like a missions internship where it's like, I'm going to commit to this place for the next 6 months. And this is going to be where I'm going to church. This is going to be where I'm going to commit in community. And it's not a forever commitment. It's just 6 months. And then I know that that's the amount of time I can invest. And there are all sorts of ways to do that. You can come every week. You can come once a week. We really just at this point need some momentum, and we need some community and some people there, and so that would be another possibility. And then lastly, I'm not going to rule this out, that you feel like this is really where God wants me, and I know it, and I know it now, and so I know that God can speak to people's hearts about that. And you're like, I'm all in. I want to be a part of the core team. Please include me, and And so, if that's you, please, or any of those tiers, and you can also, in the lower tiers, in a sense, experience it before you make a heavier commitment. You can say, I'm going to go on the short-term missions trip before I do an internship, or I'm going to do the internship before I commit to the long-term. And so that way, God takes us through that process, and it can take you through that process as well.
Something that you mentioned to us yesterday was that, I think it was this last weekend, and you were talking to the church, if you build it, they will come type of mentality is what we want to have. So rather than waiting until they come to build things for the people in the community. Yeah. And you were saying your daughters were maybe the only daughters in the congregation, it sounded like?
Yeah, only kids right now are my 2 girls. So.
But you're like, we're doing it. We're doing it.
But the quality is really high.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so we're starting a kids ministry. That's right. With our 2 girls. And so... Yeah.
So if you have some kids who, whatever it is, obviously God's, going to call people, and we know that, and we're excited to see what happens. I think we could probably keep going on a long time talking about all this, but we're going to have to wrap it up for today. So thank you so much, Sasha and Bruce, for this conversation.
Yeah.
And thank you guys all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.